Good morning, students. In previous class, the temperature factor and light factors are also completed. The factors, effects of the light, different types of factors affect on the plants. For example, temperature factor, light factor, biotic factors, different types of examples. Different factors are also affect on plants. And today we will see the plant succession. Plant succession. In plant succession, for example, plant succession is also called as biological succession. Plant succession is also called as biological Plant succession is also called as biological succession. The change of the communities in a particular place. The plant succession or the biological succession means in a particular place. We see that in a particular place, for example, the dry soil, for example, in xerophytic temperature, the xerophytic or the hydrophytic or normal soils, the plant communities are established in a particular area or in a particular place. The plant communities, different types of plant communities are established in a particular area. That area is, for example, the related to water are normally related to the xerophytic characters or normally the mesophytic characters. New plant communities are established in a particular area or in a particular place, and this is called as plant succession. This is called as plant succession or also biological succession. Plant succession or biological succession. In plant succession or biological succession, the plant communities are formed orderly. The plant communities are formed sequentially, one by one, stepwise. For example, different types of plant communities are developed in a particular area, and for example, the herbs, shrubs, trees, and the plant communities development is also sequence development, orderly, developed orderly. For example, first herbs, the next shrubs, and next trees. This is the order. The normal communities, plant communities are also developed in sequence, in order, And next one is the plant community is also called, the plant succession is also called as the biological succession also. Biological succession also. In plant communities, for example, primary succession, in successions are normally two types of successions in primary succession and secondary succession. In primary succession, in a particular new area, the plant communities are developed in a new area. And అంతకుముందు మనకి అక్కడ ఎటువంటి ప్లాంట్స్ లేనటువంటి ప్లేస్ లో మనకి ప్లాంట్స్ డెవలప్ అవుతూ ఉంటాయి. And in normally secondary succession or in secondary succession, in sometimes the primary the plants or animals are destroyed. Plants are destroyed in any type of factors. And the new plant succession, and the new plants are also established in the place, particular place. And these are the two types of succession, the primary and secondary succession. And the main two topics are very important in plant succession. The two topics are very important in plant succession, the Hydrosere and Xerosere. These two are essay questions. These two are essay questions in your annual examination. Only exam point of view, the two questions are very important, Hydrosere and Xerosere. First one is Hydrosere. Hydrosere. This is very important. These two questions are very important, repeated questions. Repeated questions in annual examination. ఎప్పుడు కూడా మనకి రిపీట్ అవుతూ ఉంటాయి the essay questions. And the first one we will see the Hydrosere. In Hydrosere is also called as hydrock. Hydrosere is also called as hydrock. And the plant communities, new plant communities are also developed in water related places. New communities are also developed in the aquatic ecosystem. New plant communities are also developed in aquatic ecosystem. aquatic ecosystem. This is called as the hydrosere or hydrate. The hydrosere or hydrate, the plant communities are developed in the aquatic ecosystems. Aquatic ecosystem. For example, we will see the example of pond ecosystem or lake ecosystem. Pond or lake ecosystem. Pond ecosystem or lake ecosystem. And today we will discuss the hydrosere. Today we will discuss the hydrosere. In hydrosere, the different types of plant community stages are developed in hydrosere. The one by one, orderly developed. One by one developed, the normal plants are developed one by one, orderly. The first one is the phytoplankton stage. First stage is phytoplankton. Phytoplankton stage. Phytoplankton stage. In phytoplankton stage, the first community, plant community is phytoplankton stage. In phytoplankton stage, for example, in phytoplankton stage, the different types of plant communities are developed in hydrosere. For example, we will see the diagram of the diagram of the hydrosere. First stage is phytoplankton stage. This is totally water. This is completely water. Completely water, and the first stage is called as phytoplankton stage. In phytoplankton stage, this is the phytoplankton stage. In phytoplankton stage, normally the plants are small phytoplanktons. Plants are small phytoplanktons. For example, phytoplanktons, for example, very small phytoplanktons. In first stage, phytoplankton stage, for example, in phytoplankton stage, unicellular forms and multicellular forms are also present. Unicellular forms and multicellular forms are also present. For example, small unicellular forms and the multicellular forms are also present. Multicellular forms are also present. For example, the phytoplankton plants examples are, for example, diatoms. For example, diatoms, Edogorium, Spirogyra, Chlorella. These are the examples of the phytoplanktons. These are the examples of the phytoplanktons. Very small phytoplanktons are first developed in aquatic ecosystem. This is the first stage, phytoplankton stage. Unicellular and multicellular forms are also developed in the phytoplankton stage. For example, blue-green algae, the green algae, and the bacillariophyceae, chlorophyceae, the cyanophyceae, bacillariophyceae. Different types of the green algae and bacteria and fungi also developed in phytoplankton stage. This is the first stage of the hydrosere. This is the first stage of the hydrosere, and the first developed in the aquatic ecosystem or pond ecosystem. And second one is rooted submerged stage. Rooted submerged. Rooted submerged stage. Rooted submerged stage. Completely this type of plants are roots are also present, and the roots attached to the substratum through the roots, and the submerged completely dip in completely మనకి వాటర్ లో మునిగిపోయి ఉంటాయి. And this is a rooted submerged stage. Rooted submerged stage. And this is also called as rooted hydrophytes. Rooted hydrophytes. Rooted hydrophytes. These hydrophytes are attached to the substratum by the roots, and the total plant is completely present inside of the water. Total completely inside water lone deep అయిపోయింది. And this is the rooted submerged stage. Rooted submerged stage. For example, the Hydrosere. Examples are Hydrosere. For example, Hydrosere, Hydrilla, Photomogeton, Ceratophyllum. These are the examples of rooted submerged stage. Rooted submerged stage. In rooted submerged stage, the plants are the hydrophytic plants are attached to the substratum through by the roots, and the total complete plant is present in water instead of the water. And for example, Hydrosere, Hydrilla, the Photomogeton, these are the examples of the rooted submerged stage. Total plant anta kuda మనకి వాటర్ లోనే మునిగిపోయి ఉంటుంది. టోటల్ ప్లాంట్ బాడీ అంతా కూడా వాటర్ లోనే మునిగిపోయి ఉంటుంది. But they attached to the substratum through the roots. This is the second stage. This is the second stage. This is called as rooted submerged stage. The first one is called as phytoplankton stage. Phytoplankton stage, and this is rooted submerged. Rooted submerged stage. And third one is rooted floating stage. Rooted floating stage. These plants are attached to the substratum, attached to the bottom of the pond or aquatic ecosystem. The roots are also present. Roots ద్వారా మనకి ఏమవుతుంది, the plants are attached to the bottom of the pond ecosystem, and the plant bodies, for example, plant leaves and flowers are floating on water. Leaves and flowers are floating on water. Rooted floating stage. Rooted floating stage. Roots ద్వారా మనకి కింద అతుక్కొని ఉంటాయి, and the normally the leaves and the flowers and the vegetative flowers leaves are floating on water. This is called as rooted submerged stage. For example, Nymphia. Neelambo. Kaluma Tamara antaru. For example, Nymphia, Neelambo. For example, Lemna. Nymphia, Neelambo. These are the example of the Nymphia and Neelambo. And the rooted floating stage. This stage is called as rooted floating stage. For example, we will see this diagram. For example, the plants are attached to the roots. This is a normally rooted floating stage. Rooted floating stage. And in this stage, in first stage, second stage, and third stage, 3 stages. And in first stage, phytoplankton stage, and second one is rooted submerged stage, and next one is rooted floating stage. In some type of books, in other sub stage is also present in Hydrosere. For example, completely floating stage. Floating plants are also present. Completely floating plants. Floating on water. For example, Pistia. Iconia. These are the examples of the completely floating stage. Pistia, Iconia, Lemna, Ulfia, Azola. These are the examples of the Azola. These are the examples of the floating plants. Floating plants are also present. For example, the Pistia, Iconia, completely floating on water. Floating on water. In some books, this is a separate stage, floating plant stage. And next one is reed swamp stage. Fourth one is reed swamp stage. Fourth one is reed swamp stage. In reed swamp stage, for example, they in normally some type of plants are also living in this type of stage, reed swamp stage. For example, the typha. Best example is typha, scirpus, and the rumex, and these are the examples of the reed swamp stage. In reed swamp stage, plants are attached to the substratum by the roots. In first stage, phytoplankton stage, the unicellular organs, the unicellular forms and multicellular forms are also present in first stage. After the development of the first stage, the unicellular forms and multicellular forms are dead and participate in decaying process. Dead and decay. The total plant bodies goes to bottom of the aquatic ecosystem. For example, unicellular forms and multicellular forms, these algae, after the development of the algae plants are dead, and the algae plants are also decomposed, and these algae plant bodies goes to bottom of the aquatic ecosystem. But the plants are very small plants. Phytoplankton plants are very small plants. The decomposing material forms a thin layer-like structure. Very thin layer-like structure in the bottom of the aquatic ecosystem. And next stage is rooted submerged stage. In rooted submerged stage, the plants are attached to the bottom of the pond ecosystem by the roots, and the total plant is present in the total water. Total plant body is present in water, and this is called as the rooted submerged stage. After the development of rooted submerged stage, after the death of the rooted submerged stage, these plants are dead and decay. After the dead bodies goes to bottom of the pond ecosystem, and the pond ecosystem, in the bottom of the pond ecosystem, soil layer is formed. And next one is rooted floating stage. In rooted floating stage, the pond depth is become 5 to 10 feet. ఇక్కడ నుండి మనకి ఏమవుతుంది, ఇవన్నీ కూడా డెడ్ అయిపోవడం వల్ల ఇక్కడ మనకి ఏమవుతుంది, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ in this rooted floating stage 5 to 10 feet. Plant depth is 5 to 10 feet. For example, ఇక్కడ మనకి pond ecosystem, this is the pond. For example, this is the plant. pond. The pond ecosystem height is, for example, 20 feet. 20 feet. First stage is phytoplankton stage. After the phytoplankton dead bodies are formed just like a thin layer in the bottom of the pond ecosystem. And next one is rooted submerged stage. Rooted submerged stage. After the development of the rooted submerged stage, and this is also forms a thin layer in the aquatic or pond ecosystem. And next one is the plant rooted floating stage. In rooted floating stage, the pond depth is 5 to 10 feet. 5 to 10 feet depth of the plant pond depth is 5 to 10 feet. In 5 to 10 feet depth, the nymphia and Nelemo plants are grow in pond ecosystem. These are the rooted floating plants. Rooted floating plants. And another plants are also floating plants are also present. For example, Pistia, Wolfia, Lemna, Azola. These are the floating plants. These are the floating plants, and the floating plants are also present in the pond ecosystem. For example, Pistia, Iconia, Wolfia, Lemna, Azola. These are the examples of the floating plants. And next one is reed swamp stage. In reed swamp stage, the pond ecosystem depth is, for example, 3 to 5 feet. After the death of the rooted floating stage, the dead bodies and the decomposing bodies are also goes to bottom of the pond ecosystem and forms a thick layer in the bottom of the pond ecosystem. And in these stages, in reed swamp stage, the phytoplankton stage to reed swamp stage, the pond ecosystem depth is decreased. Plant ecosystem depth is decreased. తగ్గుతూ ఉంటుంది మనకి. ఫస్ట్ వాటర్ ఎక్కువగా ఉంటాయి. డెప్త్ ఈస్ ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ 10 feet, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ 15 feet. And next stage 8 feet. And next stage 5 feet. Next 3, 2, 1. The depth is slowly decreased because of the plant bodies and the decomposing material. These are also goes to bottom of the pond ecosystem and forms a layer. In the bottom of the pond ecosystem. This is the rooted swamp stage. In rooted swamp stage, normally some type of plants are grows in rooted swamp stage. Rooted swamp stage. And next one at sedge meadow stage. Sedge meadow stage. In sedge meadow stage, in sedge meadow stage, in small herbs are also developed in sedge meadow stage. Small herbs are also developed in this stage, and the plant depth is 1 to 2 feet. Plant depth is 1 to 2 feet. Plant depth is 1 to 2 feet. And the plant depth is completely slowly decrease. Plant depth is completely slowly decrease. For example, the Corex. For example, Corex plants. Small plants are also developed. Polygonum. Corex, Polygonum, and this type of very small aquatic plants are also developed in sedge meadow stage. For example, herbs are also developed. Small herbs and small aquatic plants. For example, mentha. For example, mentha plants and the Polygonum, mentha, and the rubex, and this type of plants are also developed in sedge meadow stage. Sedge meadow stage, the pond depth is 1 to 2 feet. Pond depth is 1 to 2 feet. And the slowly pond depth is decreased. And next one is woodland stage. Sixth one is woodland stage. Woodland stage. In woodland stage, the normal shrub plants are also small shrub plants are also developed in woodland stage. Small shrubs are also developed in woodland stage. For example, Tharnas, cornus, albus. For example, cornus, albus, terminalia, terminalia. These are the examples of the woodland stage. These are the examples of the woodland stage. And the small shrubs are also developed in woodland stage. For example, cornus, albus, terminalia. These are the examples of the woodland stage. And last one is forest stage. The woodland stage this is the woodland stage. Woodland stage. And next one is this is the woodland stage. Woodland stage. And next one is, last one is the forest stage or climax stage. Forest stage or climax. Forest stage or climax stage. In forest stage or climax stage, different types of shrubs and trees are also developed. Shrubs and trees. Shrubs and trees are also developed in the forest stage or climax stage. These are the total 7 stages in Hydrosere. And next one is, the last one is, last stage is the woodland stage. This is a woodland stage. Last stage, for example, forest stage or climax stage. Forest stage, or this is also called as forest stage or the climax stage. And these are totally 7 stages in Hydrosere. Total stages are 7 stages in Hydrosere. First one is phytoplankton stage. Small phytoplanktons are also developed in pond ecosystem. For example, unicellular forms and multicellular forms are also developed in the pond ecosystem. Unicellular and multicellular forms. For example, diatoms, bacillariophyceae plants and chlorophyceae, chlorella, chlamydomonas, and the nastar, cytonyma. These are also eidobonium. These are also developed in the unicellular forms. And the phytoplanktons are developed in first stage. And in second stage, rooted submerged stage. Rooted submerged stage. In rooted submerged stage, the plants are attached to the bottom of the pond ecosystem by the roots. And the total plant is completely present in water. Completely present in water. For example, Hydrosere, Hydrilla, BOTANY. వీటిలో నీటిలో మునిగి ఉండే మొక్కలు అంటాము. కంప్లీట్గా నీటిలోనే మునిగిపోయి ఉంటాయి. Hydrosere, Hydrilla, BOTANY, ఇవన్నీ కూడా కంప్లీట్లీ వాటర్లో ఉండేటటువంటి ప్లాంట్స్. అండ్ సెకండ్ వన్ ఈస్ రూటెడ్ ఫ్లోటింగ్ స్టేజ్. రూటెడ్ ఫ్లోటింగ్ స్టేజ్. ఇన్ రూటెడ్ ఫ్లోటింగ్ స్టేజ్, for example, Nymphaea, Nilambo, in this stage the pond ecosystem depth is 5 to 10 feet. 5 to 10 feet depth. 5 to 10 feet depth మనకి ఇక్కడ కనిపిస్తుంది. The plants are attached to the substratum by the roots, and the vegetative, the plants, the normal flowers and the leaves are also floating on water. For example, Nymphaea, Nilambo, these are the examples. And reed swamp stage. In reed swamp stage, small plants are also developed. This is called as rooted submerged, and next one is rooted floating stage. Rooted floating stage. And next one is normally completely floating plants. Floating plants. For example, the Pistia, Iconia, Lemna, Azolla. These are the completely floating on water. మొత్తానికి మనకి వాటర్ పైన ఇవి తేలి ఆడుతూ ఉంటాయి, కంప్లీట్లీ ఫ్లోటింగ్ ఆన్ వాటర్. అండ్ నెక్స్ట్ స్టేజ్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ యాజ్ ది reed swamp stage. Reed swamp stage. Reed swamp stage. In reed swamp stage, the normally in some type of the reed swamp stage, small plants are also developed. For example, typha, scarpus, rubens, this type of plants are also developed. In the pond ecosystem, depth is 3 to 5 feet depth. 3 to 5 feet depth. And the sedge meadow stage. In sedge meadow stage, the plant depth is 1 to 2 feet. 1 to 2 feet. This is called as sedge meadow stage. Sedge meadow stage. And the next one is the woodland stage. Sedge meadow stage, small herbs are also developed. For example, mentha, polygonum. These are the developed in the reed swamp stage, sedge meadow stage. The depth is 1 to 2 feet. The pond depth is slowly decrease. And next one is the woodland stage. In woodland stage, the plant depth is completely decreased. The total land water is completely disappear. And the woodland stage, small shrubs are also developed. The water is completely disappear. Only soil is present. And for example, shrubs, cornus, albus, terminalia, and different types of shrubs are also present. And next one is forest stage or climax stage. This is the last stage. In last stage, different types of shrubs and trees are also developed in last stage. Trees and shrubs are also developed in last stage. And in this stage, different types of plants, trees, and different types of shrubs are also developed. The total, the water is completely disappear. This is the woodland stage. ఇక్కడ మనకి ఏం కనిపిస్తుంది? ఓన్లీ సాయిల్ కనిపిస్తుంది. ఇక్కడ నుంచి సాయిల్ మాత్రమే కనిపిస్తుంది. This is called as hydrosere. In hydrosere, this is a diagram of hydrosere. Hydrosere. ఇక్కడ మనకి వాటర్ లెవెల్ అనేది ఇక్కడ వరకు ఎక్కువగా ఉంటుంది. కొనుక్కొని ఏమైతుంది? వాటర్ లెవెల్ కంప్లీట్లీ decrease. Water level is completely decrease. This is the hydrosere. First మనకి ఎక్కడ నుండి స్టార్ట్ అవుతుంది? phytoplankton stage. ఇక్కడ నుండి స్టార్ట్ అయ్యి మనకి ఏమవుతుంది? The water is completely disappear and the total land is completely new soil is formed because of this type of these type of stages and plants, the death and decay of the plants and forms the soil. For example, మనం ఇక్కడ ఎక్కడైనా ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఒక గుంత తీసాం అనుకోండి, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ స్మాల్ పిట్ లాంటిది తీసాం. అప్పుడు మనం ఏం చేస్తుంటాం? దాంట్లో రోజు కొన్ని లీవ్స్, దాంట్లో కొన్ని నార్మల్ ఎండిపోయినటువంటి ఆకులు, లీవ్స్, ఫ్లవర్స్ అవన్నీ రోజు వేస్తుంటాం. అట్లా మనం డైలీ అవి వేస్తున్నప్పుడు ఏమవుతుంది? ఒక ఆఫ్టర్ 6 months 1 year తర్వాత ఏమవుతుంది? అండ్ ది లీవ్స్ అండ్ ది వెజిటేబుల్, ది ఫ్లవర్స్ అండ్ దీస్ ఆర్ కంప్లీట్లీ decompose. After the decomposition process, the complex materials are converted into simple materials and ఇవన్నీ కూడా మనకి సాయిల్ లాగా ఫామ్ అవుతూ ఉంటాయి. అండ్ ది కంప్లీట్లీ ది సాయిల్ ఏమవుతుంది? మనకి ఇంక్రీజ్ అవుతూ ఉంటుంది. సాయిల్ లెవెల్ ఈజ్ కంప్లీట్లీ స్లోలీ ఇంక్రీజ్. అప్పుడు ఏమవుతుంది? కొన్ని ఇయర్స్ తర్వాత మనకి ఏమవుతుంది? ఆ గుంత ఏదైతే పిట్ ఏదవుతుందో దట్ ఈస్ కంప్లీట్లీ మొత్తానికి మనకి డిసపియర్ అయిపోతుంది. అదంతా కూడా సాయిల్ లాగా ఫామ్ అయిపోవడం జరుగుతుంది. And say this is the hydrosere. In hydrosere, in pond ecosystem or lake ecosystem, and the new communities, the plant new communities are developed in the pond or lake ecosystem. This is the different types of levels, and in annual examination, this is essay question. In essay questions, they completely the diagram వేయాలి, the complete diagram వేసేయాలి, and one by one side headings 1 by 1 రాయాలి, and after that examples compulsory examples అనేవి ఇవ్వాలి. ఎగ్జాంపుల్స్ ఇవ్వాలి, 1 by 1 the side headings రాయాలి, and diagram also compulsory. This is the essay question and the hydrosere. This is the essay question in your annual examination. And next one is Hydrosere and xerosere. రెండు ఉన్నాయి మీకు ప్లాంట్ సక్సెషన్ లో. These two successions are also important. ఒకసారి ఏమో హైడ్రోసిల్ వస్తుంది, ఒకసారి ఏమో జీరోసిల్ వస్తుంది. రెండు క్వశ్చన్స్ రిపీట్ అవుతుంటాయి. టూ క్వశ్చన్స్ ఆర్ రిపీటెడ్ క్వశ్చన్స్. ఒకసారి ఎగ్జామ్లో హైడ్రోసిల్, ఒకసారి ఎగ్జామ్లో జీరోసిల్ ఈ విధంగా అడుగుతున్నారు. కాబట్టి దిస్ ఈస్ వెరీ వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్. హైడ్రోసిల్. And in next class, we will see the xerocere, development of the plant communities in xerocere.